This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
South African Olympic athlete Caster Semenya loses an appeal against rules by the International Association of Athletics Federations. German Chancellor Angela Merkel due to arrive in West Africa for a three-nation tour. And French police fire tear gas at protesters in a Paris May Day rally. Hello and a very warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mtongana in Nairobi. And with me is Penina Karibe with a preview of your business news.
Thank you, Lindy. And coming up on Africa Live Business, 1,800 workers who were trapped in a South African mine are rescued. And the Gambia signs an oil exploration agreement with BP. I'll have details of those stories and plenty more in about 30 minutes from now. For now, back to you, Lindy.
Thanks, Penina. Well, we start the hour with some reaction coming from South Africa to a court decision to dismiss an appeal by athletics champion Caster Semenya. South Africa's Golden Girl was fighting against rules by the International Association of Athletics Federations to decrease naturally high testosterone levels in female track athletes. CGTN's Michael Karanja has more on that story.
South African runner Caster Semenya is a double Olympic champion. She has been fighting measures imposed by the International Association of Athletics Federations that compel athletes, those with differences of sexual development, to lower the testosterone levels if they wish to compete as women. On Wednesday, she lost her appeal.
Caster Semenya and ASA requested that the DSD regulations be declared null and void. By majority, the CAS panel has dismissed the request for arbitration, considering that Caster Semenya and ASA were unable to establish that the DSD regulations were invalid.
A three-judge panel at the Court of Arbitration for Sports says even though the rules are discriminatory, they are needed and necessary.
The panel found that the DSD regulations are discriminatory, but the majority of the panel found that on the basis of the evidence submitted by the parties in the procedure, such discrimination is a necessary, reasonable and proportionate means of achieving the IAAF's objective of preserving the integrity of female athletics in some track events of international competitions, that is from 400 meters to 1 mile.
The rule stated that athletes ought to take drugs to lower their testosterone levels 6 months ahead of a competition. The new regulations are to affect female athletes taking part in the 400-meter to 1,000-meter races. South Africans were disappointed by the ruling by the Court of Arbitration for Sports.
She has always been who she is, and they need to leave her alone so she can continue running in peace. She is what she is. There is no reason why she should be viewed wrongly for who she is. She is a girl, that's it.
It is unfair because she's not the only one who is intersex and who also runs. The question is why her and why now? She's been running for years, so why now? It's unfair.
This now means that Semenya will not take part in the 800-meter race at the World Championships in Doha, slated for September. Michael Karanja, CGTN.
Well, CGTN's CS Duplessis has been following the developments from Johannesburg.
I think the best way to describe it is surprise. A lot of South Africans felt that Caster Semenya's legal team had enough to poke holes in the IAAF's so-called research, and that from a human rights violation point of view and an ethics point of view, that Caster Semenya had a solid case that would beat the IAAF once and for all. She has said that she's been targeted specifically by the IAAF for over a decade now, and unfortunately Caster Semenya has to accept temporary defeat because I think her and her legal team will do some head scratching now to see if they are going to appeal this. They have 30 days to do that and then find out if they'll be in a Swiss tribunal court to discuss and argue that the IAAF's new regulations are in fact discriminatory and should be invalid. Well, now the new regulations are set to take place from the 8th of May, and the IAAF have said that these female athletes with DST, with higher testosterone levels, can take a voluntary blood test to see if they're eligible to take to the track and compete. It has now, of course, set a precedent in what is a landmark decision, and the IAAF now will have to find ways to make sure that they can comply, that athletes who have elevated testosterone levels are monitored, because they want a level playing field. And it means now that because of this landmark decision from the Court of Arbitration for Sport, that serious measures have to be put in place to make sure that that playing field is indeed level, and athletes with higher testosterone levels are monitored. But it looks like the 8th of May is when these new regulations will take place, and that's when basically it's D-Day for a lot of these athletes to decide if they are going to continue or they're going to take the medication. Yeah, she's received immense support, but at the same time, there's a fair share of critics that have also surfaced on social media who have sided with the Court of Arbitration for Sport's decision. But it does beg the question, will other sports follow suit? And it's a dangerous precedent set by the IAAF now, because with these elevated testosterone levels, a lot of other female athletes have excelled in other sports. But where do you draw the line? Where do you come down to a certain point? Is it that 5 nanomole sort of level that you have to regulate? Because it would be very brave for other sports now to get involved and to suddenly introduce these measures. Time will tell how these sports carry on, but I think for now the IAAF are pretty much on their own, and I think that there's so much mixed emotions around this, because it has been an emotional time for Caster Semenya, that she has her critics, but she also has huge support. I mean, the United Nations came out in support of Caster Semenya, the South African government, so time will tell what happens from here on out, but it has been a very, very interesting day, and the reactions even more so. It is very interesting. I was trackside for that 5,000 meters, and everyone was out to see Caster Semenya and how she did in the 5,000 meters. And 16 minutes and 5 seconds is it's below the qualifying standard, so she'd have to improve on her time. But it's only the second time she's run the 5,000 meters, and many people will feel that it was to test the waters, to see her capabilities. She looked very comfortable. She looked like she had plenty in the tank. But remember now, Caster's options are very limited. If she decides that she wants to continue with her marquee events, the 800 and 1500 meters, she'll need to take the medication to reduce her testosterone levels to where the IAAF want it. If she decides to run naturally, which has been the message that she's put out and the way she was born, her options are now 5,000 meters, because there's no 3,000 meters at World Champs in Doha, and it means that she'll have to still qualify. So we'll have to wait and see, but her options very limited, and at this stage I think 5,000 meters is probably where she'll want to make a statement going forward.
Well, of course, as we now know, the new gender rule proposed by the IAAF will force female athletes to regulate their testosterone levels. And this is because testosterone is a hormone that increases muscle mass, strength and endurance. The new rule requires that the blood testosterone levels of female athletes be under 5 nanomoles per litre for a continuous period of at least 6 months. They need to maintain that level for as long as they wish to remain eligible for IAAF competitions. The first Olympic gender dispute, though, dates back to the 1930s, and the first sets of gender tests were put in place in the 1960s, in which female athletes were forced to appear naked in groups before judging panels. This was later replaced with chromosome testing, which itself was abolished in 1996. Right, turning to some other news now. German Chancellor Angela Merkel is set to arrive in Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou, in the first stop of her West Africa tour. The three-nation visit includes Mali and Niger and is aimed at expressing Germany's commitment to stability, developmental cooperation in the region and support for the country's fight against extremism. Merkel will meet separately with the leaders of all three countries and attend a meeting with the leaders of the G5 Sahel in Ouagadougou on Wednesday. On Thursday, she'll visit German soldiers stationed in Mali as part of a United Nations peacekeeping mission before traveling to Niger on Friday. Well, for more on Merkel's visit to West Africa, we're now joined by CGTN's Deji Badmus in Lagos. Deji, of course, it's clear that one of the key issues the German Chancellor is expected to focus on is security for a region that, as we know, has experienced recently increased militant and religious attacks. Just paint the picture for us, if you can, of the extent of the security challenge this region is facing and how leaders are dealing with it at present.
Well, there's no question at all, Lindy, that the Sahel region is facing serious threat from militant and religious attacks. I mean, Burkina Faso, for instance, used to be a very safe haven, but not anymore. We've seen several attacks on Burkina Faso. We just saw one not quite long ago, just over the weekend. And as we speak today, in northern Burkina Faso, quite a number of schools have been shut down for fear of being attacked. Teachers have been attacked and killed, and it's estimated that about 150 children are out of school in northern Burkina Faso. We've also seen these militant groups now become ambitious. They are taking the attacks from northern Burkina Faso to the capital, Ouagadougou. We've seen quite a number of attacks in Ouagadougou. We've also seen attacks in Mali, of course, even the capital of Mali as well. We've seen attacks in Niger. I mean, it's a constant thing. So we can clearly see this growing threat of militancy in that region. And the fear is that things are going to be ratcheted up as a result of the fact that ISIS has now been displaced in Iraq and Syria. And just a few days ago, that video from al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS, referencing Burkina Faso and Mali clearly, and of course Niger, clearly showing that things might likely get worse in terms of insecurity now in that region. Now, what have the leaders been doing? Well, they've actually been meeting. We have the G5 Sahel force. Unfortunately, funding has actually been holding that force down. It's been able to carry out some operations, but not in the scale that a lot of people would expect. And so this visit is definitely coming at an auspicious time. We've also seen collaboration between the Sahelian region and, of course, the Saharan region, where the leaders of both regions have actually been meeting, sharing intelligence and all of that, coming together to fight this monster called militancy in that region. So it's they've been trying their best, but definitely they can do with a lot of support now from not just Germany, but from across the world, so to speak.
No, let's talk about the support that could come from Germany. Just talk us through, Deji, how critical this collaboration might be with the German government in terms of combating insecurity, in particular with reference to what you mentioned as one of the key challenges being funding.
Look, it's very critical. The collaboration is very critical. And, you know, it goes beyond Germany. We're also looking at the larger picture, the larger European Union. Germany wields enormous influence in the European Union. So these leaders, the Sahelian leaders, would be hoping that Germany will be able to use its influence to get the other European countries to support. And you know what? Look, this also ties down, the issue of insecurity in that region also ties down to the wave of migration you've had in that region. Look, these countries, the Sahelian countries, and of course some Saharan countries, are basically, they are just the roots for irregular migration. And we've seen, you know, waves of irregular migrants now moving through the desert, through this region to get to Libya and try to cross the sea, the Mediterranean Sea in Libya into Europe. And of course, Europe is trying to stop that. Germany is trying to stop that. It's definitely part of the reasons why Mrs. Merkel is visiting. So, you know, if that region becomes insecure as it is now, if things get worse, then what you're going to see is that you're going to see more and more people move out. You're going to see more and more refugees moving out of that region, and there's a possibility that they will be gravitating towards Libya and seeking to cross the Mediterranean Sea now to Europe. So it's very critical. Funding is critical. Funding especially for the G5 Sahel force. That funding is very critical, and everyone is waiting to see what Mrs. Merkel is going to say, what pledge is going to be made, and what effort would be made, of course, to redeem those pledges, because you need those funds to come. It's not just enough to make pledges. You need the funds to come. So it's in the interest of everyone, to be candid, that this issue is dealt with and dealt with decisively. Lindy?
Indeed, and as you say, we can't ignore Germany's own interest in trying to make the Sahel a safer region. Thank you so much, Deji Bedmus, joining us there from Lagos, Nigeria. Now, let's move on to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Authorities in the country and the United Nations have stepped up security for Ebola patients and healthcare workers. Armed groups recently carried out attacks on treatment centers in the outbreak hotspots of eastern DRC. Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi has set up a mechanism to coordinate response efforts to end the spread of the deadly disease. CGTN's Chris Ochamringa has more from Kinshasa.
Healthcare workers tackling the Ebola outbreak in eastern DRC have resumed treating patients following a temporary halt of activities 2 weeks ago. The suspension was caused by an attack on a treatment center in Katwa and Butembo, in which a World Health Organization doctor was killed. The DRC recorded 27 new cases of Ebola on Sunday, the biggest number since the outbreak was declared in August last year. The Congolese health minister says insecurity has significantly reversed the gains they have made.
After such a security incident, the Ebola activities, especially contact tracing, vaccination, are suspended. So it leaves the disease time to spread in the community.
The government and international organizations have stepped up their protection of healthcare workers and patients.
All the Ebola responders team must go out with an escort. Before they just have to check for security, but now the instruction is that they must go out with a security escort. At the government level, the Prime Minister will lead a multi-sectorial response committee.
The World Health Organization's Regional Director for Africa, however, believes the response should also try to promote dialogue with the community members to help tackle the disease.
So we are going to see an increase in the security coverage of the operation, but very much sensitive to the fact that we don't want to, obstruct and confront the people first with the military. This is a public health response, and we need to keep emphasizing that.
The health workers are grappling with issues of mistrust by some community members and the belief that Ebola was brought by foreigners.
Healthcare workers had threatened to go on strike if authorities didn't do more to protect them, so an increase in security has been welcomed there. But there are concerns that the Ebola outbreak in eastern DRC will worsen if attacks by militia groups continue to prevent patients from getting treatment. Chris Ochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
You're watching Africa Live. Time now for a short break. Coming up, the United Nations mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo begins scaling down its peacekeeping forces in the country. And French police fired tear gas at protesters in a Paris May Day rally.
Data out of the country.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Perina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed. And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives.
Reporting from Nairobi City Center.
News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice. The Nigerian government has confirmed that authorities in Saudi Arabia have freed a Nigerian student who was arrested last year for alleged drug trafficking. Zainab Aliyu was accused of smuggling 2,000 packets of a strong painkiller known as tramadol into Saudi Arabia. But Nigerian authorities later found that the drugs had been planted in her luggage by a criminal gang. Drug trafficking is a capital offence in Saudi Arabia. Those found guilty are executed. Here's CGTN's Deji Badmus with more.
Zainab Aliyu is a very lucky girl. That's what most people would tell you here because of Saudi Arabia law on drug trafficking, which is capital punishment. Her release also came on a day when hundreds of her fellow students had held a protest in the northern city of Kano to demand her release, and President Buhari ordered officials to ensure that happens. Saudi police arrested her at a hotel in Medina last December, where she had gone for the Lesser Hajj with her family for allegedly smuggling 2,000 packs of tramadol in a bag tagged with her name that had been left at the airport. She and her family denied the accusation. She and another Nigerian man had been in detention since then and due to face trial when a dramatic twist to the case recently emerged. Nigeria's anti-drug body, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, said it uncovered a criminal cartel that specializes in planting illicit drugs in travelers' luggage at the country's airport. Now, an investigation launched after Zainab's dad petitioned the police led to the arrest of 6 persons at the international airport in Kano, where Zainab's flight had originated.
Zainab has been released to our mission in Saudi, and that is news that I believe will be very, very heartwarming and will be relieving also for both the family and the Nigerians that have had to express their concern and their care about these 2 Nigerians who found themselves in this situation, basically as a result of some criminals whose activities, have put these 2 Nigerians into, a very difficult situation.
It's indeed a dramatic case, but everyone here is very happy that this has ended on a positive note with Zainab and the other Nigerian regaining their freedom. But the case has also cast a spotlight on security at the country's airports, with people calling on the authorities to do more to protect travelers and rid the airports of this cartel who often have collaborators among airport officials. Deji Badmus, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
The South African government says it's continuing to engage relevant partners abroad to secure the release of kidnapped photojournalist Shiraz Mohammed. Mohammed was captured 2 years ago in Syria while traveling on a relief mission with humanitarian organization Gift of the Givers. CGTN's Yulisa Njamela has more.
Dr. India Suleiman, my South African president, my family, my friends, the international community, anyone that can help. I need your help in securing my freedom, please. I live in fear of my life. I am scared.
A plea from photojournalist Shiraz Mohammed. For Mohammed's family, the video appeal means there's hope.
Shiraz Mohammed's family remains hopeful that the latest proof of life shows that he is indeed alive, but they're extremely worried about his safety.
The family has reached out for help from the South African government.
We have noted the latest information released by the Gift of the Givers about the South African Mr. Shiraz Mohammed, who was abducted in Syria in 2017. DIRCO will continue engaging with relevant partners abroad to secure his release and will continue to keep his family informed of all developments.
Minister Sisulu is, however, reluctant to divulge more information, citing sensitivity of the matter.
You will all know that any situation of a hostage situation is a very delicate situation, and the less that is said about it, the better for the life of in the case of the life of the person concerned, and for the people who are undertaking any negotiations.
Mohammed was abducted in January 2017 in Dakush, Syria. He was on his way to the Turkish border when he was taken at gunpoint. Yulisa Njamela for CGTN in Pretoria, South Africa.
The United Nations peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, known as MONUSCO, has begun scaling down its civilian operations in the country following an anticipated cut in its budget by the UN Security Council. The move will see more than 600 UN staffers, many of them Congolese citizens, lose their jobs. CGTN's Chris Ochomringa with more from Kinshasa.
MONUSCO has started closing 8 of its offices due to budget cuts. The closure is in line with the UN's new mandate, which focuses on the protection of civilians and the strengthening of DRC's state institutions. Most of the offices are in the west of the country, but the decision will not affect the UN peacekeepers in the east.
So it's only civilian staff that until now were mainly in charge of implementing our former mandate, which was focused not only on the protection of civilians, but also on the supporting the electoral process.
MONUSCO had frosty relations with former President Joseph Kabila's government, which accused the mission of overstaying its welcome. But that seems to be changing under the new Congolese president.
Our special representative, the Secretary General, Leila Zerougi, has already met several times President Tshisekedi. And there is a very good working relationship, and so we want to see together what we can do.
More than 600 UN staff will lose their jobs, many of them Congolese citizens. The loss of so many staff dedicated to ensuring peace and stability would in many countries be greeted with dismay. But some Congolese resent MONUSCO's operations because of its failure to wipe out the numerous armed groups that have been killing and raping civilians in the East for decades. One political science professor in Kinshasa even says the announcement of the closure of UN offices is good news for the DRC.
A few Congolese may be impacted negatively, but overall I can guarantee you that there is satisfaction every time this news is announced that they have reduced the number. And the Congolese cannot wait to have the mission end once for all.
Several UN members have indicated a desire to cut spending on peacekeeping in the DRC, particularly the US, which is the largest donor. So this may only be the start of further scrutiny on MONUSCO's operations. Chris Ochomringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
On Tuesday, Chinese President Xi Jinping attended a conference to commemorate the centenary of the May 4th movement and delivered an important speech that elicited an extensive response in South Africa. Tyrone Pretorius, a rector and the Vice-Chancellor of the University of the Western Cape, said that he strongly agreed with Xi's words. In the speech, Xi stated that Chinese young people should shoulder the responsibility of the era. Let's take a look.
I share your President's view that indeed the youngsters of today are the leaders of tomorrow. We therefore have, as the elders in our communities, we therefore have a huge responsibility to inculcate values in the youngsters of today so that they are the ethical leaders of integrity for tomorrow. And part of that leadership for tomorrow is about having an international vision. We're living in a global world. You can no longer teach the youngsters of today only about your little world. You need to expose them to a greater world vision and a greater sense of the global community that we work in. And one of the great things that we learned about Chinese students is the work ethic. And the real seriousness and the intent with which Chinese tackle higher education. It is more than just a nice to have. It is absolutely essential in this competitive world that we're living in. And so work ethic, discipline, and integrity is what we learned about our Chinese students that came to study at UWC.
In international news, in France, thousands of protesters, including the Yellow Vests, have clashed with police at the annual International Workers' Day March. Reporters say police arrested 88 people by Tuesday morning, and more than 7,000 police officers had been deployed to curb the protests. The Yellow Vests protesters joined the annual May Day rally to protest against President Emmanuel Macron's policies. This comes just days after the French leader outlined policy proposals, including tax cuts worth more than $5 billion. And now the latest on the WikiLeaks case. The website's founder, Julian Assange, has been sentenced to 50 weeks in jail for skipping bail to avoid being sent to Sweden. It's been 7 years since Assange breached a British court order and took refuge in Ecuador's London embassy. He was arrested last month after Ecuador withdrew his asylum status. He will serve the nearly 1-year sentence while fighting a separate attempt to transfer him to the United States. The US has charged Assange with conspiring to steal confidential military files and intelligence. Well, time now for your business news with Penina Karive.
Thank you, Lindy. And coming up in business tonight, 1,800 workers who were trapped in a South African mine are rescued. And the Gambia signs an oil exploration agreement with BP.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Business in Africa is at the crossroads, where opportunity meets innovation, where profitable new markets collide with global trends. From the sound of an African bell on a stock market's floor, to the shout of a trader in a bustling free market. It's colorful, vibrant, and exotic. CGTN stands at the gateway to Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. From Morocco to South Africa, we talk to the deal makers and actors who fuel its engines of growth. Only on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
South African gold mine Sibanye Stillwater has announced that around 1,800 workers that were trapped at its Tembelani shaft have been successfully rescued. The workers were trapped on Tuesday afternoon after an accident halted operation of a shaft used to transport workers. None of the miners have been reported as injured. However, the incident has revived concerns about safety at Sibanye, which last year suffered a spike in fatal accidents. About 1,000 workers were also trapped underground for more than a day at one of the producer's operations in February 2018 after a storm damaged power supplies in the area. Still on mining matters, the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union is in danger of being deregistered by the South African Department of Labour. In a notice issued in the Government Gazette, the Labour Registrar says AMCU has ceased to function in terms of its constitution. CGTN's Angela Merkel reports.
AMCU's Joseph Matunjwa called a press conference in Johannesburg to deal with what he's called the alleged deregulation. AMCU represents around 250,000 members in the platinum and gold sectors. One of the issues that the registrar appears concerned about is how the leadership spends the money it collects from members.
All audited finances of AMCU are in order. There is no issue. I heard you media, you are talking about 7 billion that is in AMCU Kula. Show us. Where is it? Show it.
Matunjwa says the money isn't invested, it's spent on its members. It doesn't have an investment arm like the other prominent union.
All the monies of AMCU service our members. During the strike, show me any union when they are on strike, they can spend millions to support their members on strike. Show me. It's only this union. Show me any union when their members are on strike, they can transport their members to home. In all the corners, the province of the country, except AMCU in this country. Show me. I've never heard any member of AMCU complaining about the finances of AMCU because they see their money used to them every day.
The union says it plans to meet with the registrar in the coming days to sort out the matter once and for all. He's commented that AMCU isn't compliant in terms of voting for office bearers and holding national meetings. Mtongana denies not holding an elective conference.
Any organization has got the right to postpone. Why our right are being undermined as a NEC? Why? Why? It's within our constitution to do that. That's a power that is vested to the NEC of AMCO to remove or to postpone. We are not running away from the Congress.
Fighting words from Mtongana, and the next 60 to 90 days are going to be really interesting, especially as we enter those platinum wage negotiations. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
The Gambian government has signed a deal with British multinational oil company BP to explore oil and gas off its coast. According to the state's Ministry of Petroleum and Energy, the oil producer is set to first carry out an environmental impact assessment at the country's A1 offshore block. A1 is part of the 2 blocks that the Gambian government stripped from Norwegian-listed firm African Petroleum in 2017, saying the company failed to meet contractual obligations. The deal comes as BP seeks to emulate oil and gas finds in neighboring Senegal and Mauritania, which have attracted oil majors from across the globe. Ethiopian Airlines is set to launch a new route to China. The route will be its 6th destination to China. Africa's largest airliner has signed an MOU with authorities of the Chinese city of Chongqing. The 3 days a week scheduled freighter service will strengthen the already robust trade ties between the city of Chongqing, Ethiopia, as well as Africa.
Ethiopia is the most populous and fastest growing country in Africa, has also a lot of business cooperation and economic exchanges, as well as cultural projects with Chongqing.
This agreement is about the launching of 3 freighter flights from Chongqing, the Chongqing city, which is the largest municipality in China, to Ethiopia. It is not only to Ethiopia. This route is stretched all the way to South America, this new route. So it is for the Chongqing or for China, it is the largest one flight route in the freighter sector. So it has a lot of meaning for the Ethiopian Airlines, also for the Chongqing municipality.
A Ugandan businesswoman is helping to reduce the cost of housing in her country with a new website where builders can buy supplies online. Viola Amupaire's shopping platform means they no longer need to travel to specialist stores or mining areas to source construction materials. CGTN's Leon Sanyange reports.
Viola Amumpire is looking out for new orders for building supplies like cement, lumber and tools. She is the brain behind winnerhardware.com, an e-commerce platform for building and construction materials. Initially, her target market was Ugandans living abroad who wanted to build back home.
Winnerhardware.com is an inspiration of stories of Ugandans abroad that send money back home to friends, family, and this money, instead of it being used for buying construction materials, it is instead used for people's personal gains. So I thought, why not have a platform where people are able to buy construction materials all at once in just a click away.
It's still common for shoppers to come to a physical store like this one and purchase the construction materials they need. But with an online store, for some, the hardware shopping experience is starting to change. And for site engineer Siraj Ngati, the platform offers convenience, speed and value.
There are certain materials that are never in established facilities, like how cement is. So it's just a click away. You place your orders and materials come on time. And in construction, that saves time.
It can also save money, which Amumpire hopes will help her website to thrive.
It's a promising space, and especially for construction, if people are to save more and use their money for better investments, I think they will find that the digital or virtual businesses or virtual mode of shopping are the cheapest means possible.
It costs Amumpire about $20 a month in internet costs to run the website. Her main clients are household builders, but large-scale contractors are also using the platform. That positive response is giving her hope that while construction remains an expensive venture, she can attract more customers by helping them cut their costs. Leon Sanyange, CGTN, Kasangati, Central Uganda.
Tunisian authorities have launched a new campaign aiming to control food prices during the upcoming Muslim holy month of Ramadan. The North African nation is currently monitoring its operations of food supply in the country. The move is an attempt to reduce monopoly as well as price speculation. Here's CGTN's Adnit Shawashi.
The Tunisian government announced that all necessary measures will be taken to lower the prices of food products and to face speculation before the advent of Ramadan.
All commodity products will be available in the month of Ramadan. We will step up the control of distribution circuits in partnership with ministries concerned and the Consumer Defense Organization.
The Ministry of Trade added that the national production will cover 95% of the consumption needs. In addition, small quantities of products have been imported to regulate the market.
The market's supply will be on a regular basis with sufficient quantities. The economic control teams are mobilized on the field to ensure the control operations at the level of warehouses, fronts and markets.
Salah is a street vendor. He earns a decent living working 12 hours a day in downtown Tunis. The 62-year-old man says it has become difficult to feed his 4 children because inflation hit the food sector in recent years.
I work more but I make less money. Food products are very expensive. The state has no control over food prices. The middle and poor classes are suffering due to the skyrocketing prices of vegetables, fruits, meat and oil.
Tunisian authorities deemed it necessary to rehabilitate the wholesale markets to reduce the number of intermediaries and encourage agricultural groupings in order to facilitate the marketing of their products. The Ministry of Trade has affirmed his department's determination to organize the distribution channels, pointing out the need for coordination between all stakeholders to optimize the transport of agricultural products to the wholesale markets in a bid to control food prices in Ramadan. Aden Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
In recent years, competitive video gaming or esports has become much more than just a hobby. There are professional competitions and even college majors geared towards esports, and one young Chinese gamer with dreams of winning a world championship is working hard to bring this dream to reality. CGTN's Xu Xinchen has the story.
Not too long ago, this would just seem to be a group of youngsters playing video games. But this is esports, and the goal, now more than ever, is to win.
My target is winning the world championship.
Meet 22-year-old Zhang Xingran, better known by his gamer ID, JD Zoom. Zhang and his team JD Gaming made it to the final round of this year's spring season of LPL, the pro circuit for the massively popular game League of Legends in China. Zhang thinks he's getting closer to realizing his dream.
We played IG in the final round of LPL's spring season. IG is a world championship team. I think winning our own world title is within reach.
Esports is expected to grow into a 100 billion yuan market in China this year. That's almost $15 billion. Investment is flowing into the sector. But this doesn't mean these young people are making money simply by playing. Being pro gamers, they face the same challenges all professional athletes do.
You not only need talent but also have to go through a lot of training. You have to deal with injuries like traditional athletes. Pro gamers might sustain injuries to their backs, necks or wrists when holding the mice too long.
And even the role of video game has changed for him.
Recreational gamers play games to pass time, but when I have spare time, I can hardly think of passing it with video games.
The fast expanding market is giving this new generation of Chinese youth more career options. An esports gamer position is included on the list of 30 new professions released by the Chinese government in April. However, Zhang doesn't think it's a quick ticket to wealth and fame.
I don't think this job is right for every gamer. You need to know your skill level and exert a lot of effort. Otherwise, you are just wasting your youth if you keep trying to go pro, and probably should focus on school instead.
Zhang says he's doing what he enjoys. As esports becomes more mainstream, it's giving more and more Chinese youth like Zhang a chance to chase their dreams in what they enjoy. Xu Xingchen, CGTN.
We shall leave it there for now, but later on Global Business, we'll be bringing you special coverage of Black empowerment progress in South Africa. That's at the top of the hour, and I shall see you then. For now, it's back to you, Lindy.
Thanks, Penina. Well, let's take a short break, but here's what's still ahead on Africa Live. Coming up, ancient Nigerian pottery survives despite modern influences.
Join us from Global Business and see Africa through our eyes. The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
For centuries, women in Nigeria have led the way in the local production of ceramics. But now the ancient craft is almost becoming extinct as it struggles to adapt to the modern world. Experts are calling on the government to help boost trade and earnings in the ceramics industry, as well as preserve the traditional culture. CGTN's Phil Ihaza has more.
Like many women from the Ushafa village in the suburbs of Abuja, Titus Dorcas has been making pottery her whole life. Following the local custom, Dorcas learned to trade as a child, but she says unlike in the past, business is not doing well.
This pot-making business used to be very lucrative because many people would buy them to store water and for other domestic reasons. But with advancements in technology, people prefer to use refrigerators. But if we get more support, we can produce other items to bring in a profit and keep us in business.
After a long and strenuous production process, their best pots sell for just $3 to $5 a piece, not enough to break even. According to the International Trade Center, Nigeria still imports nearly $500 million of ceramic items every year. A major reason for the boom in imports is that many people prefer foreign-made and better finished crafts to these locally made ones. Experts say traditional pottery makers can tap into the market if the government and other private institutions step in to help modernize their local craft.
What you need is a lot of education and enlightenment, and you begin to open up even smaller industries. Cottage industries. We don't need big factories. We need cottage industries where they could do this and they will compete among themselves. Competition will bring perfection, and perfection will begin to make the product to be competitive, even internationally.
These women have held on to this craft for many years now with the belief that someday the country can benefit immensely from trading these fine work of art locally and beyond. And Nigeria stands to gain a lot from developing traditional pottery.
Clay ceramics is one of the things people can actually use to develop the economy, to improve the lives of the citizens, even those living in the rural areas. They will stay in the cottage industries in our villages, and we reduce the problem of urbanization and overpopulation in the cities.
Until then, women like Dorcas can only continue to put their hopes into these pots, their only source of survival. Phil Ihaza, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
An outdoor movie theatre in Egypt is giving moviegoers a chance to embrace the country's serene desert through the lens of art and cinema. Let's take a look.
As the sun sets on the Egyptian desert, the glares from a projector screen of a makeshift cinema presents a new concept for moviegoers.
Well, I thought, how can one make use of our desert, especially because we have a desert that can be used in many ways, not just for movies or cinema. So I decided to do something nice that people can gather around rather than just coming out here for dinner or a fire then leaving. Especially in the summer, because this will be held more in the summer but also in the winter. People will get together, see a nice movie and leave.
But other than watching a movie, the venue offers various social activities.
I wanted to hold a birthday party for my son and my daughter too here because I wanted to show the children the beautiful nature and something new. Watching the movies in the middle of the desert, surrounded by breathtaking nature scenes of Egypt.
There is a difference between the cinema in the desert and the cinema anywhere else. Here in the desert, we have a bit more freedom. I sit comfortably and I find whatever I need.
The change of atmosphere is what makes it special. The open-air cinema has also attracted people who aren't particularly passionate about the desert. Group sizes typically range from 15 up to 70 people. A similar cinema was built at the start of the millennium, but no single movie was ever screened. Locals weren't particularly keen on the idea. The theatre was later destroyed. Chamrono, CGTN.
And coming up in your sports news, up next. Iker Casillas rushed to hospital after suffering a heart attack in training.
Africa, where champions are made